So what's really the deal with Toxapex? Is it just another anti-meta Pokemon? Or is it a Pokemon that silently decided the course of the rest of the format? Let's check it out. So I think the mystery we're trying to solve here is Toxapex an anti-meta Pokemon, or is it a new meta Pokemon? Right? And I think my initial inclination is that it's an anti-meta Pokemon. At the time of the NAIC tournament, it was like 44th in the usage on Limitless, and afterwards, I think based on these online tournaments and the heavy usage stat, especially after Wolfe's use of Toxapex, it's just increased so much. And so it really got me thinking, is it the anti-meta, or is it kind of the poster child of this new, slower format? And so in that question, I want to think about our suspect, right? Toxapex has so many things going for it. One is water and poison, which is such a strong typing in the metagame right now. We know bulky water types are just good. I think about Melodic and I think about Melodic, right? Like it's just so good when it comes to like its move set, its typing, and really its its stats. And when we think about Toxapex's stats, special defense is so high. So it's able to really maneuver in and out and take a lot of these attacks from some of these really stronger Pokemon in the meta, like notably Charizard, right? And so when I'm thinking about some of the weaknesses that pop up a lot, I'm thinking about things like Psychic, right? But even then, its special defense is so high, and its other abilities like Regenerator, or when you pair it with items like Leftovers, there's so much going for it to where it's going to be able to recover so much of that damage that it takes. And so really, we've got to investigate this. And so let's hop into some games
to see what they're thinking heading into the first game here. Swiss round 4. We get aggressive and a little bit more passive coming out from Wolfe. Toxapex right away hitting the field, whereas Alex is going to opt into his Charizard next to King Gambit.
Yeah, we've got the Toxapex making the scene here, and it has the ability to go for that infestation early on in this game. The King Gambit can't really relax too easy here because it is threatened from Wolfe's Charizard. There is a potential where a Heat Wave or a Weather Ball goes into that slot and picks up an easy knockout, and you don't really have a way to check the Charizard if you're Alex right here and now. Yes, you can get some good damage off with a Sucker Punch, and you do have the alleviation of that Focus Sash as well. So for at least one turn, you can try and get maybe a Kowtow Cleave, maybe a Sucker Punch onto Wolfe's Charizard, just to try and get damage onto it for something else to come in later in the game and potentially pick up a knockout. But if you're concentrating everything onto that side of the field, what is the Toxapex going to do? Going to trap something in and make things even more difficult. If you trap that Charizard on Alex's side in, it's going to mean that it's difficult to kind of switch out and constantly chip for the rest of the game.
I mean, a little eyes into what these trainers are thinking of Mega Evolution for both. Of course, when we're not looking at a Weather War, but of course, Sun complementing both of them, might as well go ahead and click that Mega Evolution and get that boost. Posing Charizard, Heat Wave will miss onto the Charizard over on Alex's end though, but when you're eyeing up that King Gambit, that's going to be that one that won't appreciate the hit, already brought down into its Focus Sash. Of course, we'll be able to hang on for at least a little bit longer. Alex will connect both of his...
Now, the first part of this investigation is going to be from really the GOAT himself, right? We want to look at Wolfe Glick and how he was able to really bring Toxapex into the forefront, right? And with that, he took it up against, well, the first game I want to look at is up against Alex Underhill, another amazing player. I encourage you, and I'll probably say it again throughout the video, but I encourage you to watch this entire tournament. One, just as your research, you're going to hear me say that a lot, do your research, and also just to really see how he's able to elevate some of these other Pokemon and bring me into this question of, are they anti-meta Pokemon, or are they these new meta Pokemon that he's seeing the forecast of or the future of, right? And so in this game, I think one of the main traits that he utilizes is the survivability, right? The typing of Toxapex. When you look at this game, and we're going to take a pause at one of these points, when you look at this game and see how much, or really how little damage Toxapex takes from this Heat Wave from a Charizard in the sun, right? it's gonna just really open up as to how this Pokemon Toxapex is able to have this kind of staying power. Like when I look at this field, there's a Charizard, there's another Charizard, there's a Kingambit, and then there's a Toxapex. And so it's like, how is the Toxapex ending up to be the most pivotal Pokemon on the field right now? Right? And that, I think, is the important part. Now, he does lose this game 1, but one of the interesting things that we'll see is how he pivots that and is able to utilize it to win this match overall. Again, using that pivoting and leaning into the natural strengths of his Pokemon allows him to the win in a match, and got to the win in this one versus Alex. But that still brings me to question, right? That was one game, and I think the way Pokemon is, we can't base anything off of one game. And so we've got to look a bit more. So I'm thinking about this next game versus Ko Sukide, right? And again, another great match I encourage you to go watch. But one of the things that I think is so interesting is how he utilizes Toxapex in this match as opposed to the first one. He really utilizes the regenerator ability, but in this one I think we get to see a bit more of Toxapex's defensive kit and how it leans into this slower metagame and really gets me into this idea that Toxapex might just be the harbinger of this new slower meta.
Probably get respectable damage into it. I don't think it's going to be enough to pick up a one-hit KO against it, so it gives the Toxapex room to get the infestation or that toxic onto it, and then also room for Incineroar to get an attack off. Or do you go for the Wave Crash, maybe into Incineroar? That's, well, not going to be very effective into the Toxapex. It kind of loses you the game here, so the Last Respect feels like the best option. The Incineroar has taken a good amount of damage so far, and maybe Last Respect, after, you know, it might be enough. A couple of them could be enough to get rid of it, and then you can start dealing with the Toxapex. You just feel like it's probably not got enough in the tank to deal with these two Pokemon that Wolfe preserved perfectly to this end point.
That's the thing, is Basculegion can do so much, but with these two Pokemon on the field, and with just how bulky this Toxapex is, and of course if you target wrong, that could be everything. Wave Crash from the Basculegion, just making sure you can pick off one of these two threats to try and do this one-on-one. Now, of course, with no protect from the Toxapex, this is where we assumingly will see the Toxic just start chipping away more and more at this health. So Basculegion now badly poisoned. I have to imagine this next turn we see a Protect start getting this damage chipped away.
Yeah, the Protect now, start that stack, and then you're going to be, if you call, relying on Last Respect into the Toxapex here, because, and hoping that it's doing significant amounts of damage. The Wave Crash recoil could be quite crucial here in this end game, but it's all about how well this Toxapex can take these Last Respects from this Basculegion. Remember, it is fully powered up at this stage with all three of its partnering Pokemon now fallen. Baneful Bonker coming out to give that Toxapex a little bit of alleviation and get some of that leftovers recovery going.
And of course, this is the name of the game. Toxic onto the Basculegion. Baneful Bunker coming out from the Toxapex to get a little bit of recovery and chip away. So now it comes down. You've already used the Protect. You can go for it again. But how much damage is Last Respect's going to do?
Yeah, I think the Toxapex will take it, and this gives an opening for Wolfe to potentially get an infestation off, which then the next turn that's stacked with. Here we go.
That's
oh,
it. Okay.
It's not.
Last Respect.
And so now in this game, one of the main things that I think is so important is just being able to see how Toxapex is able to survive in this game, right? He is it's constantly there to apply pressure, right? It's able to use Toxic and Infestation to really chip and chip and chip and chip and chip away at the damage or at the health of its opponents, right? And with that, Wolfe is able to really bring this game down to the wire. Now, he does lose this set, but one of the interesting and just so cool things is that he brings it down to the double Protect. And, you know, it's a 1 in 3 chance, and it's so interesting to see. And when he does do that, like, right, like, it's just, you know, it's a game of chance in a way, but it's so cool that the way that he brings Toxapex down to the wire, right, as a big part of the end game. And that's not the first game or the only game that it's Toxapex at the very end, right? So this is also not the only time that this happens in this tournament. He also brings it down to another double protect, which just, I think, really continues to ask the question of, does this Pokemon in and of itself slow down the pace of the meta? Because it's facing some of the format's toughest opponents: Charizard, Kingambit, Garchomp. Like, these opponents, these Pokemon, Floette in some of these games, it just absolutely is able to withstand them. And so I'm thinking, does this allow for the idea that Toxapex is a part of this new meta? So we're going to look at one more game, and this is a game that I've played, and I think one of the really interesting things here is what we have to do is take it outside of Wolfe, right? This was Wolfe. He's the GOAT. Like, so many regional champions, world champion, international champion, right? Like, he's done all the things, and so it's easy to think, oh, well, that's just him. But I think when we take it from just the one kind of centralized player, right, and bring it kind of down to the level of the rest of us, right? And even the next person I'm bringing up isn't even that example, because this next team I've seen so many people use, and I had to, get on that as well. This is a team from UB Slow, one of the premier Japanese team builders and competitors, and he used it in a tournament that is so pivotal when it comes to the Japanese players, right? It's already extremely competitive there. That's the game's or origin place, and so it's gonna be really important to see if somebody can take a team that Wolfe created and then elevate it even higher within a new format, with new partners, and one that's even more optimized towards Toxapex. And I think when we think about it in that aspect, it really starts to build our case, right? That I'm starting to believe that Toxapex is a part of this new meta. It's slowing down, it's allowing for more setup, it's allowing for more options, and I think Toxapex is really at the forefront of that. But I think that makes it more than an anti-meta Pokemon. So to finish up our investigation, we'll look at a full game when I used a team from UB Slow, right? One of the premier team builders and Japanese players in Pokemon Champions as a whole, right? So what I want you to do is try and look for, not all my mistakes, although they will be there, but try to look for the ways in which Toxapex is able to create space for the game as a whole. I think there's one way in particular that I think was very interesting and pretty cool that I thought about this game, right? So let's take a look. Now, one of the coolest things that happened in this game is that Toxapex was able to take the same options, right, the same staying power, and use it towards, you know, a win in this game with me. And as I was playing it, one of the things that was so cool was the weather strategy that it in and of itself was able to somewhat stop. Now, I'm not the best player, right? And so obviously I probably don't make all the best plays, but if Pelipper is not able to switch in and out, right, like that's going to just leave more space for Charizard in the Weather War. And you know, like I said, I don't necessarily do everything correctly, but one of the things that's cool is I am able to trap the Toxapex, or trap the Pelipper with the Toxapex, and create space for Charizard to come in. And so I think that in and of itself really is one of the ways that Toxapex allows for the team that it's on to have the space to get to more wins, to resist other threats, to stop other strategies, right? And so UB Slow has really leaned into the strength of this team to slow down the opponent and add, and I think one of the biggest things that he's added more cohesive partners, right? We have the Metagross on this team, we have the Grimmsnarl on this team, and all those things, I think when you switch out the Mamoswine and the Sneasler, I think it really starts to bring the team together, right? And allow Toxapex to rise up in this new meta. And so I think one of the things that UB Slow saw is the same way that Wolfe saw, is that this Toxapex is kind of ahead of its time, or was ahead of its time at the NAIC Regional. And now in this newer format, somewhat slower format, right, I think it's really able to shine and bring out the elements of this new meta. So what are some things we keep seeing? We keep seeing that the same positioning pattern, right? We're seeing Toxapex either at the very beginning of the game and or at the very end of the game. And honestly, kind of all throughout the game. We saw that in the game with Wolfe versus Alex Underhill. We saw that in the game with Wolfe versus Kosuke. We saw that in the game with UB Slow's team. There's this, when Toxapex is able to be on the field, not necessarily consistently, because when I'm thinking about the game Alex Underhill gave the second one, he was able to switch in and out and really take advantage of that regenerator ability. So when Toxapex is able to be on the field and allow that pressure, right, allow that staying power, then it's able to create those wins. But if it's not there, we saw the same kind of losing positions and the same losing conditions. When Wolfe lost, it was because Toxapex was not able to stay on the field at the right times, and we saw him correct that in the next game. So I'm really thinking that if Toxapex slows down the game in the right spaces, then it's going to be really difficult to stop, right? Toxapex is one that it slows the game with its regenerating abilities, with its defense, with its typing, with its kit. All of the things just slow the game down. So, you know, originally I thought Toxapex was just another anti-meta Pokemon, but I really don't think it's just a phase. right? I think it's here to stay. I think it is a beginning of this slower meta. I think it's one of the things that, in the same way that, like, I'm thinking about Mousehold in 2022, right? Like, it just a really big supportive Pokemon that kind of started to warp the format around it. And maybe not the whole format, right? Like, I wasn't necessarily a competitive player at that point, but it did make a big splash, and then you had to respect it, right? You had to think about it in different team compositions. You had to think about it with your own, ideology, if you were going to use it or if you were going to play against it. And I think that's going to be the thing that we start to see. I think we're going to start to see more and more and more of not just Toxapex, but also Pokemon like Toxapex, right? And the way that Toxapex has been able to, in a way, kind of warp the format around it, right? Just like Wolfe did, now we're having these conversations about the format being slower. So now I want to think about our framework, right? The position framework that we on this channel are really trying to develop to progress our gameplay, right? It's not just team building. It's not just picking the right Pokemon. It's not just seeing what Pokemon and what teams are popular and what's popping right now, what's hot, right? It's more about doing, again, your research, your thought process, your digestion of the information, mainly the VGC guide. I'll get into that on another video. Your ideology about what a team is going to be. That's going to be the only way that you're able to really ascend, I think, in this new meta, in this format, and with champions, right? And so with that, we're developing this framework, okay, to understand what Pokemon bring to the table, how it allows and works into our team position, and how our thought process and those things together get us to the win. And so what I'm thinking about Toxapex brings adaptability and tempo to this team composition, right? The adaptability where it's allowing for these different positions, right? These different advantages to get to your end game, right? We saw that with the Regenerator. We saw that with Toxic. We saw that with all of these different things, the typing, where it's able to allow more space for you to get to the win. And with that, the tempo, right? It slows the pace of the game, right? It allows for us to achieve better positions through the abilities that Toxapex provides. So with that, within that framework, with those two contributions, I'm thinking that you have to understand the threat of Toxapex. You have to maneuver what you're doing on the field to then deal with the Toxapex at the correct time. Right, understanding the threat. Wolfe updated his gameplay, right, because of that fact. Okay, and I think that's the thing that's so interesting, just to see how these top players are maneuvering, how they're switching, how they're creating these windows for the win, right? Windows for the win. My opponent didn't switch, right? When he kept the Pelipper in and I was able to use Toxapex to trap it, that was the thing that gave me the advantage, right? It gives so many options, right? And when we're thinking about some of the three pillars when it comes to the competitive game, we're thinking about information, we're thinking about resources, we're thinking about options, right? All of those things together, when we see Toxapex, it really, I think, speaks to the fact that there is a new meta on the horizon with Toxapex at the front of it. So let's talk about our discovery. I don't think these teams won because Wolfe made some crazy anti-meta pick with Toxapex. I think these teams won because what Wolfe saw was that Toxapex is on the front line of this new, slower meta, and then created a team that utilized its advantages. I think Toxapex is the poster child in the slowing down of the meta. And one thing I think I want us to take away from this is the meta isn't always determined by the most damaging or the most popular Pokemon. It is the Pokemon that provide the biggest advantages that become meta. Your homework. I think that this question could also be applied to Mamoswine. I could be crazy, but I want you to go investigate that answer in the comments. So, also, I want you to investigate what other Pokemon could you elevate into the higher status in this new, slower format. Maybe you have a favorite, maybe you have something that you've been waiting to unveil, and now, I think, is the time. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and like, comment, subscribe. We'll be in case for more. Well, that's all for us today. Thank you for joining us on Between Turns. And remember, be out there doing your research. The ladder is unforgiving, and you don't want to be unprepared. I'll see you guys on the next one.